I'm ready, sir.
Okay, welcome to the Wyoming Women's Business Center webinar series. Today's presentation is called QuickBooks 101. Is QuickBooks really quick? I am Jonathan Howdershall, one of the counselors at the Wyoming Women's Business Center, and I will be your moderator today. Our speaker today is Kim Vincent. She is the co-founder and COO of the Local Crowd LLC. Kim has worked extensively in both privately held and public service organizations. She has worked for the Wyoming Women's Business Center and the Wyoming Small Business Development Center in counseling and training. Kim has an MBA and a BS in accounting and has extensive experience in assisting small businesses in financial record keeping and reporting systems. Kim has been using QuickBooks Intuit products for over 20 years and is a QuickBooks Pro advisor. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel. Just go to youtube.com and type in Wyoming Women's Business Center. Make sure you subscribe and check out our other webinars. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them in the chat area and I will ask them for you. Now, without further ado, I present to you Kim Vincent.
Well, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us, and thank you for that introduction, Jonathan. I hope that everyone that's viewing is kind of in a space where you can sit back and learn a little bit about some accounting options that you have for your business. As a small business owner, I really feel your pain, so I want to share information with you, but not make you feel like you have to go out and change anything that you're doing. I just want you to think about the way that you're doing things in your business, the processes that you have going in your business, and how you're able to report in an accurate and real-time way about all of those activities. So today's agenda, there we go. Why are we here today? What's important? Why is it important to be learning about QuickBooks? I'll go into a little bit more about the program objective. You're going to meet your presenter. Why am I the one that's here doing this? We'll talk a little bit more about the Women's Business Center, who the organization is, and what they do in our communities. Why is financial management so important? Why do we care about this topic? We'll look at some of the accounting tools and considerations for you to think about. We'll dive a little bit more into QuickBooks. And one of the things I'll show you is that there are other ways to do this, but I'm very familiar with QuickBooks. I've had experience with a lot of other programs, but this is the one that we're going to use to highlight how you could use this as a tool. I don't want to suggest that you have to run out and buy this tool. I just want you to think about how to document all the things that you're doing. So why are we here? Well, we really want to think about accounting programs because you need to be able to prepare a current financial story for your business that's accessible to you and your stakeholders. And who are your stakeholders? Well, it's probably you. It could be other family members if you're a small company. It's probably going to be your bankers. It's going to be any folks that have the potential to want to invest in your business. They want to be able to take a look at just a screenshot of what's going on and what the financial story is for your business. Can I accomplish this with a simple transactions list? You certainly can. You don't have to have a real elaborate accounting program, but you have to have a process. And I'll show you some of the examples of really simple ways to do it. Or do I need to transform the way I account for the financial activities in my business? I mean, that could be something that you need to think about. Is QuickBooks really a quick way to accomplish this? So let's talk a little bit about, I just want to give you an overview of the Wyoming Women's Business Center and how they can really impact you and your community. It was started back in 2000 with an emphasis on, we need to give people the training and the information in terms of building their small businesses, creating self-employment opportunities for them, and the target was really on Wyoming's most marginalized folks, the women, people with low incomes, people with disabilities. But it's not just women that can use the services, so keep that in mind. I know women is in the name, but there's a all sorts of micro enterprises that we like to work with. We do like to work with the smaller businesses. We can provide the business services, the planning, the counseling. We have an awesome micro loan program. We have a match savings program that you should take a look at. And we really try to create networking and educational opportunities for you to meet other people in your community, other people that are, doing the things that you're doing, and maybe they can share ideas with how to do things a little more efficiently. So why are we worried about financial information? Well, if you look at small business survival rate, and this is over a 5-year period, and it's broken out by different industries, you can see that the odds that a new business is surviving in its early years, it varies a lot by sector, but those are kind of scary numbers. Over 5 years you see 30, and I mean retail, 40% of the retail opportunities may continue to exist. So if you think about what's going on and why is that happening, well, there are some pretty common mistakes that are made by small business owners. And many of these mistakes occur in the financial realm in terms of I don't have real time about information about my financial position. Some small businesses, you plug along, you're working really hard, and at the end of the year you might turn in your financial information to your accountant to do the tax prep. Hopefully you have a really good understanding of your costs and your pricing structure and what the available markup is to you to maintain the reasonable profit margins. Businesses sometimes fail to meet cash flows. You periodically hear about people that get behind in their payroll taxes, or they're not paying their sales taxes. All really important issues for small businesses. And I recognize that there will be some folks on the call that we don't have employees. I'm just a 1 or 2 person shop. But there might be some folks on the call that struggle with these issues in terms of really having some significant cash flow demands. We all have to think about how we're going to manage our growth. Sometimes growing too fast can really hurt a company. We haven't properly structured our debt. All of these things really relate to your ability to prepare a financial statement. So when we start talking about accounting, everybody wants to pull their hair out, and I'm going to throw a couple terms out there. I want you to think about it because we will look at it a little bit more in QuickBooks in terms of how you view your accounting information and the methodologies that you apply. So you'll hear people talk about cash basis and accrual basis, and you have some options. And I mean, there are some accrual basis standards if you're over a certain amount in sales, or if you have inventory in high sales, you probably are using accrual basis. Cash basis is you're counting stuff when it comes in, and you expense it when the cash goes out. And each of these methods, there's some merits and disadvantages to it. It's all related to the difference in the timing of the revenues and expenses. So if you're accrual basis, you might be sending out invoices to your customers, asking them, to pay you for the services of the previous month. You won't see that income maybe for another 30 days. So on accrual basis, you're counting that income in May based on the invoices that I'm sending out. On cash basis, you don't count that income until you actually receive it in subsequent months. So it's really about the difference in the timing. And truly, accrual is a great way to match the revenues that you can receive in a certain period to the expenses received in that period. So like the Women's Business Center, we have grant income. Every quarter we'll close a period. We'll look at what we spent during that period. We'll look at what we potentially earn against the grant income, and we do that on an accrual basis. So most small businesses are going to be cash basis. I mean, the taxpayer is going to be a is going to be a cash basis. So the real critical objective here It's not how you track it, but actually tracking your income and your expenses in a real-time, accurate fashion. So if it's worth doing, I got to tell you, it's going to be worth measuring. You're spending a lot of time on this. You know, you have an idea. You've developed a certain business model. Let's figure out if, you know, if it makes sense for you to continue doing it. And, you know, we want to minimize the number of times we have to look at a particular transaction or process a piece of paper. But there is a full continuum of options. So we could have a 12-column green bar, and that's really old school accounting paper, to more mobile digital tools. If you're a single person business, it's very possible for you to do all of your tracking through your checkbook. And it doesn't have to be, you know, a real sophisticated program. There's some nice Intuit apps. I think there's an app in Intuit called Mint. There's a budgeting program called You Need a Budget, where everything could be on your phone and you're tracking and categorizing your expenses. And that's going to be a really important step, is, you know, having the ability to collect the data in one place. And it's possible you could just do it through one account. I'm going to show you an example here. So it ranges from mobile apps to the online. You could have a cloud-based program that you're logging into, or you could have a specific desktop software. So this, whoops, I want to move this around. I don't think I can. So the green bar in the back, I mean, I see people that still use this way to track expenses. So each day you're writing down what you're spending, and across the columns on the right, you're just categorizing it into a particular expense category. I see people that do it with an Excel spreadsheet where, okay, each day I can go in and track my expenses by day. I can do it by category, and I'm just preparing an income statement in Excel. And you can see here, there's my income statement for 2014 versus 2015. And this is really a great way just to turn the information over to your accountant. But it's fairly labor intensive because you need to spend some time creating the spreadsheets. But it's not a hard task to accomplish. If anyone's interested in this type of tool, you know, the Women's Business Center has these things that are already prepared, and you can go in and put them to use for your business. So what we need to do is, when we start talking about accounting tools and those considerations, we need to think about, number one, the nature of the transactions that we're processing in our organization, and what kind of reporting needs do we have. Let's figure out what kind of accounting tools will work for us, and we need to think about the data flow. You know, how many transactions am I dealing with a month? Are there 300 transactions going through my bank account? And again, I want to emphasize that we have one account where we're tracking everything for the business, and we're not trying to commingle it in our personal accounts. Am I in a retail environment, and do I have a lot of transactions that are going through the system? Are they being captured by a cash register? Can I just work with my Z report from that day to know what my sales are by category? What are my reporting requirements? Do I need to have something? Do I have a loan at the bank and the bank wants to see quarterly statements? Am I trying to prepare a payroll? Is there just me and I'm doing draws as a sole proprietor, or am I cutting checks for employees, and do I need to understand what all the withholding requirements are? What about the revenue side? Am I preparing customer invoices? On the vendor side, do I have incoming bills? Do I have payables? What are all of, you know, what sort of transactions am I trying to capture? And do I need an accounting software that can help me do that? It's totally possible. You know, I'm a sole proprietor. I'm consulting. I'm recording consulting income, and I am able to really track all of my transactions through my checkbook. and I'm reconciling my checkbook every month. I know what my deposits are, and I can look and see what my expenses are. I don't need a more sophisticated software, but it's nice to have the software because when you start thinking about reporting requirements, if you really want to go in and reconfigure reports or look at the data in a different way, once you enter it into a program like QuickBooks, it gives you the opportunity to really massage it in different ways that you might not have thought of. So we want to get you out from feeling like you're, this person here with all the paperwork. We want to really streamline the process, and it is going to require a little bit of dedicated time to really track your process in QuickBooks. Once you get it set up, once you get the data in there, then it's going to be fairly quick to generate the reports and to look at the data. But you have to spend some time on the front end of that process really thinking about, my chart of accounts and the type of expenses I have, and then it makes sense as you move forward by dedicating some time to the front end of the data entry. So realistically, ask yourself, how much time can I spend on the accounting process? And then ask yourself, how much time, do I spend on the accounting process? Is this something that I could do it a little bit differently? Do I only need an hour a week? Can I go in and reconcile my account an hour a week and keep all the numbers in line that way? You need to have some kind of system, some kind of process. Every Friday, I'm going to go in and reconcile my bank account, and I'm going to go in and look at my expenses, and I'm going to know what my cash balance is, and I kind of have a sense of what the following week's going to look like. You can do it real time that way, or we can spend a little time and setting up an account in QuickBooks or a program like QuickBooks. There are a lot of choices out there, and when you look at ways to really use that data, what I'm going to do is we're going to start navigating a sample file in QuickBooks. But you need to think about, okay, when I sit down to do this, this is going to be the kind of the company information, the core piece, and I want what I'm putting into QuickBooks to really reflect my business model. I'm going to have certain expense categories. If I'm retail, I'm going to have inventory categories and cost of goods sold. If I'm consulting, I'm going to have probably some insurance, maybe a little bit of advertising. I'm going to have a cell phone bill every month. That's what, when we go in and set up our chart of accounts with the company, you want it to just be fairly simple and reflect what your business model looks like. Then we're going to talk about transactions and how to get those into QuickBooks. We're going to talk about reconciling all the time. Once you put the data in, you always want to be, using the program to make sure the data is in correctly and make sure that you understand what your account balances look like. There's a great opportunity in terms of generating reports, different ways to look at the data, and then you're always drilling down into that data with the report function, and you can review and update. So it's just, it's this real continuous cycle, but again, once you get that into your routine, it can make a lot of sense to spend time on these types of activities. So let's take a look at QuickBooks. This particular version is QuickBooks Pro 2014. And I would suggest that, if you're a smaller business and you're not doing payroll, it's very possible for you to go in and use older versions of this software. Because what this software does is it gives you a really powerful mechanism for entering your account transactions through your checking account and then reporting on it and looking at the data. And you don't have to have 2014. I mean, I've worked with people that have much older versions, The challenge is they can't get online with it because you can't do a lot of updates. QuickBooks will only support like the payroll piece of this for 3 years. So this version 2014, if I'm doing any payrolls in here, I'm going to have to go ahead and update the particular software in 2017. So when you first go into QuickBooks, and I'm a very visual learner, you see this map of all the things that you could potentially do. And I tend to not use this as my navigation tool. What I like to do is I like to work along the top here where you see, you know, a file and you have lists and you have your favorites. For me, the functionality, and I don't know if this is just the way that I'm able to think about things, but I know exactly, like, if I want to go in and look at my chart of accounts, I know that I need to go to lists, and if I need to look at anything specific to the list, this is where I go. I can spend a lot of time navigating through this top piece, and I don't really worry about that desktop piece. So let me just stop there right now before I go on and see, Jonathan, are there any questions that have come in from the first part of this?
No, not yet, but we did have a question about the presentation and if it would be available, and I have answered that question. So,
Okay.
but if anybody does have any questions, this is a great time to ask either in the chat or the questions area. Oh, okay, here's a question. Will you compare QuickBooks to Quicken, I guess?
Sure. So Quicken is, it thinks of this as your personal financial information. So you can use QuickBooks or Quicken to, you know, to really manage your checking account, and it's just not set up for a lot of the same reporting things. It looks at it as more your personal financial information than your business financial information. But it has the same mechanisms in terms of setting up accounts and reconciling accounts. So it's a good starting point, you know, for especially if you want to keep track of your checking account and savings account and moving money between the accounts. It's a great tool to start with. And it's available a lot of times when it'll be available as a free add-on when when you purchase a computer. Other questions?
I have a question. Is the QuickBooks that you use, is it a software that you download to your computer, or is it online? And if so, what does it cost for my business to use Quicken?
Okay, so I do have a personal preference here. You can do, and Intuit is really excited about their QuickBooks Online. So you can pay a monthly fee and access the program on the cloud, and so you log into your account and your data is living out there. I really like just having it on my desktop. I really like having and there's a little bit of difference in terms of how you can do payroll and how it views some of your transactions. So that is going to be an option, and it'll vary depending on, like, if you want to, let's say it might be $25 a month, $29 a month. It is going to vary depending on the size of your company and the number of logins that you need. So that's an option. So you could purchase QuickBooks for, like, let's say, $300, and that could get you through the next 3 years. And it could live on your desktop, and you could do periodic updates with some of the functionality. And whenever they do improvements to it, you'll be able to download those. So I think what we need to do is we need to kind of look at each, case by case. How big is your business? What kind of transactions are you trying to do? And then we can figure out what the best version of the software would be, whether it's Quicken or QuickBooks or QuickBooks Online. Lots of choices. There's another product called FreshBooks, and that's really ideal for people that are, like, consulting. and they want to, generate revenues and record or generate invoices to customers and record payments from customers. And that's another one that's an online interface, really simple. And so it's just another option. There's just a lot of options out there for sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so here's where we go. And when we first want to do set up a new company, there's an interview that you can take if you were to say, I want to do a new company. And it just leads you through some very simple steps about, and you can do this probably in 10 minutes because you can avoid some of the responses. You could just say, no, I don't want to do that right now. But you can identify your company and your EIN and the type of business you are. And this is awesome because you say, well, I'm a manufacturer, or I'm a consulting firm, and you pick that type of entity, and it'll give you a chart of accounts that really reflects your business. So this is a chart of accounts for a construction company. This is a sample, and it's organized by the type of account at the top. We have some bank accounts. As you go down this list, it's organized by your balance sheet. So we have bank accounts, we have current assets, we have fixed assets. All of this is information that you can put in accounts that it sets up once you say, okay, I'm going to do payroll. And then it can kind of, help you develop your payroll list. Or I have some assets for my vehicle, or I have assets for my business. I have a delivery van, and I have some other equipment, and I have some office equipment. I mean, these are all things that will appear on your balance sheet. And we're really not going to talk about the balance sheet today. We're really focused more on the income statement and recording, income and expenses. So as you move down this list, you'll see down here, now we have all sorts of different income categories. I encourage you to keep it really simple. A lot of times people tend to provide a little bit too much detail, and I'll show you how you can collapse the detail once you generate a report. But it does give you the opportunity to, let's say that I have some consulting income, but I also sell products while I'm doing the consulting, and I have two different cost structures that go along with those offerings. So I am going to set up consulting income, and in this case they have design, and they have equipment rental, and they have labor. They have all these things that they can bill their customers for. So I'm going to bill my customer for consulting, and then I'm also going to sell some product, and I'll have resale product income in here as well. I might have reimbursement income. So lots of choices in terms of how you can designate your income categories. And this is all done during the interview. And even if you end the interview, you can go in anytime and say, okay, wait, I need to put a new account in here. My little pop-up menu at the bottom, I have a choice of, editing accounts that I've already created, deleting accounts. One thing with this business that I'll point out that you typically won't do for your business, and that's to have a number on your chart of accounts. This is a way that you can go in, and if we want to edit this account edit, and you'll see it prompts you up here on the top right for a number. And you really don't need to worry about that. The way that this is really convenient is if you're working and you have a lot of chart of account, or a really long detailed chart of accounts, and you're working with an accountant and you're going back and forth with adjusting journal entries, this type of information is really useful to communicate which account we're talking about. But for really small businesses, you don't need to have a numbered chart of accounts. So when we look further down this list, We just have, here's my expenses, I have automobile, I have fuel, and again, this is all set up when I go through the interview process. It defaults to some of these expenses in here, and I don't have to do a whole lot of work in terms of telling it which expenses I want to use. But I can build out on that. Once it populates the list, I can say, oh, that one doesn't really make sense for me, or I don't really want that much detail under insurance. You have a lot of flexibility in how you view that. So when I'm thinking about my company, I have an item list where I could put in some really specific things that I'm going to be selling. And when we think about entering our activities into QuickBooks, QuickBooks has this language where when you put something in as an item, I mean, you can do a lot of income entries without ever identifying an item that you're selling, but then you don't have the opportunity to go in and look at a report of what your product sales are by item. So you have to think about, well, is it really important that I enter these items? Am I going to be invoicing my customers by items? And that'll help you decide how to move forward. So I want to throw an example out there. So let's say that you do have a Z report that comes out of your cash register. You're in a retail setting and your Z report is organized by all the different departments. You have 20 different departments. Well, what I see companies do is, they just go in and enter the Z report and put the departments as items. So at the end of the year, I could go in and I can look at my sales by department because they've been entered as items. And so sometimes, that makes a lot of sense to put that kind of detail in there. But again, for this particular business, which is a little more involved, they're trying to match up their list with what their business model looks like. So under lists, you can, well, another interesting thing under lists, is what's called this class list. And, we use this a lot at the Women's Business Center because our classes are really important for us with regards to how we do our grant reporting. And you, as a small business, you could go in and decide, well, it's really important that I have nonprofit clients and I have for-profit clients. Okay, again, I'm a consultant, and I just want to be able to identify my expenses by class. So whenever I'm doing something or purchasing something for the nonprofit piece of my business, I could go in and create that class. And here they're showing, okay, I have new construction, I have remodel, and I have overhead. All different categories, but when I look at my income statement, I could look at it by activities for new construction, remodel, and overhead. So you don't have to set up classes. In fact, QuickBooks will assume that you don't, but it's a really awesome feature to take advantage of if you do need to start looking at your activities by the type of activity that it is. And I'm not talking about expense category of insurance. I'm talking about you may have particular expenses that can go over several classes. A little bit more involved that you could take a look at. So we look at lists, and I spend a lot of time just kind of navigating to my chart of accounts. And if I get up to the top of this, I can open any account that I want to, and these accounts that have balances, I just can pop right into the account right there, and I can look at it. So really easy way to navigate. When I look at company, this is something that's going to set up some really specific things during the interview, and I can avoid, just kind of wait and come back later and fill in some of the blanks. I think a really fun thing here is if you do want to set up budgets, this is where you would do it, and at the end of the year you could go in and compare. When we're looking at reports, we could compare our budget to our actual. And that's just, it kind of keeps us on track with what we think we can do, what it's going to cost us to do that, and then going in and looking at what it turned out to be in the actual sense. So another place that your accountant may have you looking and working is where you're making general journal entries. And this is a way to make some corrections if you have, you know, at the end of the year they want you to capitalize some of your equipment. You can go in and move things from an expense to an asset. You can just go in and fine-tune things over the course of a month. So, so general journal entries, the thing to keep in mind, and the reason that some accountants don't like QuickBooks is that, you know, you can change a lot. You can delete things and poof, they're gone. Other accounting programs will show that trail of entries, and if you delete it or void it, it keeps a copy of that in your audit trail. But QuickBooks, you could go in, you could write a check, and then you say, oh, I'm going to change that check or delete that check or void that check. There's the opportunity to do that. So just, you know, if you set something up wrong, it's so easy to go back and, you know, fix what you might have done in error. So don't worry about making a mistake, because it's really easy to go in and fix things. So we have our lists, and the lists identify all those different activities that we're doing in our company. The company shows us, you know, where we set up some of the basic information. In the customer category, this is where we're really thinking about income. And we have the opportunity to enter sales receipts for the day. We have the opportunity to create invoices. You know, if we've done some work and we're going to send out an invoice, this is where all of that would occur. And then the fine-tuning that we need to do if we want to create a statement, or we can show that we've received a payment. So when you think about receipts, and again I'm going to go back to like a daily cash register Z report, well, you could go in and enter a sales receipt for that day, and this is all you do is you identify, you know, your store could be the customer, but the items could be all your departments. And so a sales receipt assumes that you get the money right then whenever you create a sales receipt, that there's cash being exchanged or cash being deposited into your account. An invoice creates income, but it doesn't look for the payment until you actually go in and say, okay, now I'm going to receive a payment. I created an invoice for that particular customer for the work I did last month, and now the customer pays me and I receive the payment. So there's steps. Once you decide, is this a sales receipt or is this an invoice that I need to create, you have to complete the movement of the financial piece. So I get a payment, and then I make a deposit, and then all of those steps have to be done. Otherwise, the invoices hang there, and you never show a receipt of the payment. Under vendors, I think the way that most people are going to record expenses are you're just going to be going into your checking account. I mean, this is where you could really spend a lot of your time, is right here. You're going to go into your checking account, and you're going to, tab across, and going to pay somebody for travel. And again, this is where you have to really know your chart of accounts. We'll just say, and it's just like that, it is done. And my checking account balance is adjusted for that amount. It doesn't mean that the check's cleared yet, but I've committed that cash to that particular vendor, and it's been expensed on my expense report. Employees, so vendors are all about bills and payments. And most people, I would not encourage you to enter bills. I would just encourage you to, enter the checks into as you pay them. If you have a lot of bills and you have a lot of inventory coming in and you need to be paying things in 30 days, then you could go ahead and enter bills. But a lot of people get really messed up in this area because once you enter a bill, then you have to pay a bill. It's a completely separate step. And you just have to be mindful of, okay, I know that I need to pay this in 30 days, and then you could go in and look at a report, and then it gives you a list of all the payments that you need to make. And I would pay the bills at that point. And here's all the bills right now that are showing up. But what I find a lot of people doing is they enter the bills, and then they go in and write the check and expense the check as the expense rather than paying the bill. So you just have to be really thoughtful about how you want to recognize your expenses. And again, this is the accrual versus cash question. If you're a single person operation, you're not going to have to deal with employees. And not every version of QuickBooks includes the employee module. So it's possible to buy a lower end piece of the software and not have this employee payroll piece of it. Banking is where you can go in and you can reconcile your account. And I think that this is just so important. It's challenging for a lot of people, but I've seen a lot of people really embrace this for, you know, a small 4-person operation, and they know what their cash balance is at any point in time. So all you do is you go in and you put in what you think the ending balance is going to be from your bank statement. I don't wait until the end of the month to do this. I just do it, you know, periodically as I want to know what's going on, and this gives me the opportunity to check those things that have cleared or not, and then work through. And at the bottom right, it's always showing me what, you know, what amount did I really need to get to. And it will show me the difference at the end. So hopefully what happens is I check the right items, and my difference down at the bottom is going to be 0. Really, this is a really, I think, a really powerful tool to help people keep track of all their transactions and reconcile all their transactions. So now we're going to look at my favorite part and why I think QuickBooks can be a really helpful tool for most of the folks on the call, and that's going to be the report center. So we have all this functionality with regards to, recording income and recording expenses, and now we want to go in and take a look at it and see how it could really, I think, make an important difference to the way you spend your time. What you want to do is you want to put that piece of data in one time into some place and not have to deal with that paper again and file it away. And this really allows you, like if you enter it as a check, I would go into and I'm working in my checking account and I'm entering my checks. You can see the checks that are here, and I'm categorizing all my information, and I go ahead up here and I'm showing some deposits that were payments coming in off of invoices, and here's another deposit. I file that paper, and I have a folder called deposits, and it shows that paper trail, and then I probably have some expense folders that are by category, but I don't have to pull out that piece of paper again. And what I can do then is, hopefully I don't have to pull out that piece of paper again, because sometimes, you can go in, and this is one of my favorite reports, is to just say, wow, let me see how I'm doing compared to last year. And I'm at a certain point in time in the year, and I want to be able to go in and look at what's going on through May 17th, and it'll show me. Previous year, May 17th, I was at $70,000. Current year, May 17th, wow, I had a 68% increase. That's really important information. What am I doing differently? Any kind of time you pull a report, so this is like a full detailed report. But if you hit collapse, this is something that just kind of shrinks it down to your critical total income, here's my gross profit, here's my cost of goods sold, here's all my expenses, here's my net income. So this is really nice. My sales went up 68%, but wait a minute, my net income only went up 27%. So it gives you the time to really jump in and, well, look what happened here, man. I really spent a lot more in payroll. Or my interest is gone, or my insurance doubled. And this is where you can say, well, let's go check that out. And anytime you have a report, you're in a report, you have the opportunity to click on a number in this report and go see what it is and go make sense out of, let's just do last month. I'm looking at November of 2018 compared to November of 2017. I can just click right here. I can see what was going on. If there's a big increase, oh yeah, I added another policy. I think this is a great point of view for having it collapsed and summarized and comparing to the same period in the previous year. I think this is a really powerful report, but there's a lot of other reports where we can look at customers, and if we decide we're doing invoices, we can set up an aging summary for our invoices. And we can say, oh wow, I've got 93,000 outstanding bills that I need to work. And I mean, that's an awesome number to have in outstanding bills, but it does give you the opportunity to take a quick glance, to see who owes you money, to see who you probably want to follow up with or call. So the sales piece of it is where so company and financials, where you're going to be pulling P&Ls and looking at your profit and loss. You could do it by customer. You could do it by vendor in terms of looking at your expenses. You can create a balance sheet. And this is really a topic for probably a later class, but I encourage all of you to have some sort of list of the assets that you're using for your business and maintaining a really good understanding of what your liabilities are too. And that's what a balance sheet does. It's a snapshot, and again, we can collapse this. It's a snapshot of this business at one point in time, and it kind of gives you an idea of the health of the business. I can pull it, I can go in, look at something and say, well, wait a minute, why are my assets so, you can go in and make changes. You can double click on something. It takes you into that account. Oh wait, I put this in the wrong place. This what didn't belong here. I got to get rid of this. And it just shows how you actually put things into your inventory. Or maybe you can recategorize them or reclass them. Again, the data has gone in one time, and I have the chance to go in and look at reports from different angles of this enterprise. So balance sheet's important. A lot of people, especially if you're a Scheduled C sole proprietor, you're not really required to do a balance sheet, but I still encourage you to take a look and see if you can create one for your business. This is a great tool to do that. And I think even if you were looking at Quicken, it would give you a really good summary of your accounts, and you could look at the asset piece. So this is my favorite part of QuickBooks, because I can go in and do my payroll summary, I can do my quarterly reports, I can look at banking reports, I can look at my budgets. There's so many different activities that I can track, and this will organize that information in a way that can be really meaningful to you. I can go and look at the bills that I need to pay, and again, this is if we're entering bills and we have terms with a lot of our different vendors. So it'll show me how much money I have that's due in the next 30 days that I need to pay. It'll show me stuff that I haven't, I might have missed. So that's a whirlwind tour of QuickBooks, but I think it gives you a sense, hopefully, of whether this is something that you want to try or if it would make sense for your business. I want to jump back into let me see how I do that. So, I mean, this was the little tour that we took. You know, you have the company and all the data that you need to represent in whatever program you choose to use. It needs to really reflect the transactions that are going on in your business. How do you make your money? Where do you spend your money? And then you want to be reconciling that all the time through your business account. And then looking at reports in a really timely fashion, and you want to have some confidence that the data is really accurate. And I'm going to go in, I can review, I can update, I can make some changes, and we just always go through that cycle. And it is really contingent on, I mean, you know, you're the best person to really be taking a look at this, and I would encourage you to do it at a minimum monthly, and not wait till the end of the year where you turn over your shoe boxes of data to your accountant and ask them to do your tax prep. It's got to be real time, and any kind of software out there, even if it's an Excel sheet, will allow you to do that. Look at it in a really timely fashion and in a summary, the information in a really summary format. And so there might be some specifics that are, specific to your industry in terms of reporting that you'll know and your accountant will know. And what I typically, how I work with clients is I really encourage them to have a handle on their financials, to be able to understand the financial statements. And maybe you're not in a position where you're creating them, but you need to understand what it means when you look at a P&L, and you can look at changes over a time period from one year to the next. And you could have a bookkeeper that's entering the data for you, but you need to be able to go in and pull the reports. And because that's your goal, is to know what's going on with regards to the financial health of your business. So not everybody, there's some people do it all, and I think that's okay. You can enter all your data and have a nice little spreadsheet in Excel, and then turn around and load everything in TurboTax. That's fine. That's an appropriate way if if you're confident that you have a good handle on the rules and regulations, and you understand all the accounting methods that are coming into play. So a lot of information. So I feel like I just kind of like doused any fire you might have for this topic with a fire hose, but it's just I just want to give you the context to think about how you could use this in your business, how it could make a difference in terms of how you process your financial transactions, review your financial transactions, and then report on them and understand what that means. So this is my contact information. I do provide some counseling for the Wyoming Women's Business Center, and I do like to really focus that counseling on QuickBooks and helping people with questions that they might have in QuickBooks, or if they want to look at a different software. I'd be happy to talk you through that process. So a great time for questions if folks are.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Kim. I have a question for you. If there's an individual that potentially does not necessarily have the accounting background and knowledge of an individual that does, how user-friendly do you find QuickBooks for those individuals? And with QuickBooks, do you also find that is there support for using the QuickBooks with, say, tutorials that would allow you to understand the program and use it better for your particular business?
Well, those are really both great questions. So you don't have to be an accountant to really be proficient in QuickBooks, but you need to understand the accounting processes and the language. I mean, you need to know some of the basics in terms of, am I cash or am I accrual? Is this a bill from a vendor? Am I preparing an invoice for this customer? What are my invoicing practices? So you have to have a clear understanding of, I think, the process and the terms. That's, I think, an answer to the first part. But you don't have to be an accountant to do this. The one area where I see a lot of people struggling in this is when and it's easy to work your way through, but they really struggle with the whole keeping track of credit cards and credit card payments, and there are some really simple ways that we can work with folks just like this, where we get online together and I can show you how to do something, or I can look at what you're doing and help you, move through the process step by step. So if you have a particular question, let's say that you've been using QuickBooks or you want to start QuickBooks, I can help you through that. And there's other tutorials online. There is a help menu in QuickBooks, and you can go and there's tutorials at their Learning Center, and there's a lot of different tools that are available to tap into.
Yes, QuickBooks looks like a very, very powerful resource and a very helpful resource for businesses. Does anybody else have any questions?
It is a very robust program, but you don't have to use it to that level. You could do some really basic things and generate financial statements for your business without doing, or really spending a lot of time in all these modules. And I think, at a very basic level, you're just going in and you're reconciling your bank statements, weekly, monthly, whatever that is. You're entering those transactions through an account in here, and you're always able to tie back to the balance that the bank thinks you have. That's just going to be really important. So I would welcome folks if they do want to work one-on-one. We can certainly schedule the time to do that and answer your specific questions. That's how we're here to help.
So it doesn't look like we have any more questions, and I think we'll wrap it up here at the end. And thank you for that wonderful presentation, Kim, and we really appreciate everything you do for the Wyoming Women's Business Center and for our state and our community. So thank you so much for this presentation. Actually, it looks like we got one last question that's coming through, and it is, Kim, are you familiar with features in the nonprofit version of QuickBooks that I can use to make my life easy? And this is from one of our participants.
That's a really good question, because there are industry-specific versions of QuickBooks, and so a perfect example, like the construction industry has a version for QuickBooks, and the nonprofit world has a version for QuickBooks. So I can access that program, but I don't have a lot of hands-on experience with the program. It's just that it's the way that it views your ability to track grants and donations, and it has a very specific chart of accounts that can help your business, and it's going to have you creating your grant income and using the class system to really identify the different classes of grants. So I personally don't have any experience with it, because I do so much with QuickBooks Pro, that if somebody does want to take a look at the nonprofit piece or version of it, I'd be certainly willing to help them.
Well, thank you again, Kim, and we're going to wrap it up. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact Kim, the Wyoming Women's Business Center. And at the end, would you please fill out the survey that comes up? We greatly appreciate the feedback. And once again, Kim, thank you so much for the wonderful presentation, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you for attending.